Hey, folks. I am Larry Saperstein, as always. And you know what else is always the case?
Yeah.
It's that I'm joined by my wonderful co-host, Jacob Bellotti. How are you?
Hey, I'm good. And, this is a show that we do.
And, something else that is true is that this show is called
Let's Talk About That.
All systems are a go.
Talking database activated.
Begin in 3, 2, 1.
Let's talk about that. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about what? Let's talk about who? Let's talk about me. Let's talk about you. Let's talk about that.
Girl, I cannot believe we are talking about that.
Wait, what are we talking about?
Let's talk about that.
Oh my goodness. You know what I love about this show?
What do you love about this
When
show?
we have guests on, we ask them lovely questions about themselves and their careers. And we, don't make it messy and about other people.
Well, we're neat kings.
Yes. And, we love talent relationships. We really do. We really do.
And let me tell you, our guest today is all about talent relationships.
Oh, my goodness. So today's guest is an icon. But before we get into that, let's talk about us.
Yeah, let's talk about us.
So we went to the premiere of Child Star.
Yes, the new Hulu documentary movie about child actors in the industry.
Yes.
Most of them Disney actors.
Mm-hmm.
Some of whom I know personally. Actually, only one.
Yeah.
I knew. Jojo Siwa.
Jojo Siwa, yes, who we did chat with.
And what did you think of it?
I thought it was very interesting. I think it was an insight into something that I don't think really either of us kind of know about in a way.
Right.
It was like about how some of these kids when they're underage are pressured and all of that. And also when we talked to Demi Lovato.
Right.
Shout out Demi. We know
Demi.
We know that she listens to the pod. she is a loyal listener, we found out.
Demi said, I will check it out.
Yes. So Demi, we love you.
We love you, Demi.
But she had really interesting perspectives on all of this, because and I like that she admits that when she was a child star that she was very unlikable.
Yeah, and she said that like she was having, mental health issues. She's been very vocal about her mental health, struggles, and she was like, "Look, I was having mental health struggles, but I wasn't allowed the time that I needed to process things and like recover." And she was saying that she was just being pushed and pushed and pushed, and there was no opportunity for her to address her mental health struggles.
Right. And it's so fascinating because now it's like she's in such a better place and she's making new music and she's living her life.
Yes.
And it was really interesting to see that and chat with her about it.
Check that out on Hulu.
But also importantly...
Oh, very important. Very
my goodness,
important.
You can't skip over this.
Well, no, I wasn't skipping. I was saying we're done talking about the movie. Now we're talking about the event.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
We have on this podcast talked about the incomparable energy of Joyride.
Yes.
By a certain artist.
Yes.
And it just so happened that certain artist attended this event.
And that artist is KE $SHA. No. KE $HA.
There you go. You got on the rebound there.
She is Kesha.
Honey, Kesha was in the building.
Kesha was in
and her
the
purse that she was
building.
carrying said bitch on it, which I love.
I didn't even see that.
Because are you a man? Because I'm a bitch.
I'm a bitch. And she was just radiating Joyride energy.
Oh my God. We danced 2 feet away from Kesha, which was unbelievable.
Yes, unreal.
This is just a fucking emergency going on.
Jeez, that's loud.
I don't think the microphones are picking that up, but
I don't know.
It is
Maybe
funny.
they are.
It is funny. We were dancing 2 feet away from Kesha, which was absolutely incredible. I think probably one of the great moments of my life.
Yes.
See, the alarms are going off. Joyride.
Yes, because Kesha the energy of Kesha is radiating.
We chatted with Raven Simonier.
Chatted with Raven. Allison Stoner was a big one for me. Again, not really for you, but big one for me.
Because I didn't know who she was.
Well,
to be
I
honest.
just, she was on all those Disney shows, and I just remember watching her, and I just loved her because she was a dancer. She was like the dancer girl.
Well, she was very nice.
She was very nice. We talked to her for a long time. We also talked to her about the podcast.
We did, and we'll post pictures on Let's Talk About That pod.
But let's say, also there was sort of a private Demi concert.
There was.
Miss Lovato.
Yes.
Where she sang her new song for the crowd that was there.
Yes.
And then we talked to her, and I was explaining to her that like my experience on High School Musical was very different because we weren't like child stars. You know what I mean? Like I was already 20 by the time that show started, and I didn't have that like childhood Disney experience that other people did. And we also weren't a Disney Channel show. We were Disney Plus, so it was a little different.
Right.
But then we talked about our podcast, and she did, in fact, say, I will check it out.
Yes. So, Demi, loyal listener, we love you.
So, essentially, Demi is listening. She's tuning in.
Yeah. We really do love
you.
So. And we met an iconic Disney mother.
Oh, my God. Thank you for reminding me. My favorite Disney mother of all time, Maria Canals Barrera.
Yes,
the
honey.
mother on Wizards of Waverly Place. Hello.
That's right. And we were able to chat with her about
our
reboot
Wizards of Waverly
and stuff
Place experience.
Because we went to the taping.
She was lovely.
She was amazing.
Iconic.
We had a nice long chat with her.
By the way, it's been like 15 years since that show ended, and she looks exactly the same.
Exactly the same.
She has not aged a day.
She is keeping it tight,
yes,
honey.
She really is. So it was a pretty fierce experience.
Yeah, that was really fun.
Yeah, and it made me think about our guest today.
Yeah,
because in some ways we were socialites.
Right.
And our guest today, maybe you want to give a little bit of an insight into our guest.
This is really unbelievable.
Yeah.
Who we have on the podcast today. The person we have on the podcast today was the first female stockbroker on Wall Street.
That is crazy.
She was the queen of Studio 54.
Yes.
She hosted her own show for 20 years on television.
Absolutely.
She became an entrepreneur, like selling products, diet pills, and exercise machines. She knows everybody in Hollywood.
Yes.
Everybody in business.
Yes.
She is an icon, legend, star. She is now a social media star.
And she's kind of touted as the OG influencer.
She is the original.
She was a socialite and an influencer before that stuff was online, before the internet even existed.
This is a woman who knew Princess Diana.
Yes.
This is a woman who knows Liza Minnelli.
Yes.
Who knows Diana Ross,
Yes.
Elizabeth Taylor. She has
the Hiltons.
The Hiltons. She knows absolutely everybody.
Yes.
And she was also, importantly, I do want to mention this, the first person to ever put a drag queen on television.
Insane.
And
so
please welcome to the podcast.
We are so excited.
Nikki Haskell. Right after this. Nikki Haskell. Hello. Welcome to Let's Talk About That.
We are so honored to have you, truly. We've been waiting for this moment of getting to have you on this podcast. So we are very, very excited to talk to you.
How often do I talk about her? I talk about her all the time.
Honestly, like once a week, truly.
Your signature pose. How's it going?
Great.
So obviously you have had the career that every person should aspire to. You were the first female stockbroker on Wall Street.
I was among the first 5.
The first 5. Okay.
Right.
That's still major.
Yeah, it is major. And, at the time, I wasn't even thinking about it. As you're doing something, you don't really, I really didn't pay any attention to it because, so what happened was, I'd made a lot of money in the market by mistake. I had taken $18,000 when I was married, and I ran it into $2.5 million.
Oh my goodness.
And there was it's a long story, but then when I remarried my ex-husband again, he said, "Why don't you get a job?" And I was really never qualified to do anything. I was a terrible student. I barely got out of Beverly Hills High School. Mm-hmm. I was going to be a designer. I was going to be a decorator, all sorts of ancillary jobs, which, of course, once you get married, you don't have to do that. So he said, "Why don't you get a job?" And I thought, wow, since I made this much money in the market, maybe I should become a stockbroker. It never entered my mind that there weren't any women on Wall Street.
Wow.
So a friend of mine's father owned a small brokerage firm in New York. I was in New York at the time. And I went to see him, and I said, I just made all this money in a fluke, and I think I'd like to be a stockbroker. So they sent me to the New York Institute of Finance. So I was the only girl with 1,900 men.
Wow.
My God.
Even then, it didn't even really sort of register the fact. And I passed the test the first time, which is a miracle of the ages.
Okay.
But prior to that, I had been a real estate broker, and I had passed my salesman and my broker's exam. So I sort of rose to the occasion when I had to, because when I was in high school, Beverly Hills High School, I was just the worst.
Okay.
I was a lot of fun to be with.
Sure.
I was voted biggest flirt and best line, but I wasn't exactly beating up the scholarship department, So it was, and when I started, I got, the first account that I got was this friend of mine who was the son of the people that owned Revlon.
Okay.
So that was like my first, I had a big order right away.
That's a big account.
Yeah.
Wow.
I got, my first order was to sell 30,000 shares of Restaurant Associates, which was a big company, like a conglomerate that owned a lot of restaurants in New York. So, and I got very lucky, and I had huge accounts, and I did it for 10 years. And then one day I decided I didn't want to do it anymore. And then I was sort of like out of work. I really wasn't qualified to do anything.
Right.
Because I was like underqualified, overqualified. And I didn't want to be a stockbroker anymore. And so I took about a year off. Actually, I came back to L.A. And when I went back to New York, Prince Egon von Furstenberg came to me. He was a close friend of mine.
Of course.
And he said, I'm doing a television show. How would you like to be my co-host? I said, that sounds like a great idea. So he went off to someplace, and I went off to Europe. I went to Cannes, to the Cannes Film Festival and the Grand Prix and everything. And I kept thinking to myself, how come there's nobody here? Why isn't anybody shooting any of this? I mean, I thought, this will be great. We'll go on location. I'll shoot everything. I had the whole thing envisioned. And the day that I was getting ready to come back to the United States, Egon called me and said, I don't want to do the show. So I've decided not to do it.
Huh.
So I got in the car. I was driving down to Saint-Tropez to meet a friend of mine. And all the way down, I kept thinking to myself, wow, what a bummer. That would have been so cool. Then the people that were doing the show called and said, Egon decided he doesn't want to do the show anymore, so we decided to make it your show.
Wow. Wait,
So that's how I got the show.
The Nikki Haskell show.
That is.
But it wasn't the Nikki Haskell show at the time. At the time when they did it, it was called In.
Okay.
Okay.
The fashion segment was called In Style. The show business segment was called In Lights. So it had a lot of different little
But it really was the
segment
beginnings
names.
of.
So the problem was they wanted to shoot it in a studio, and I wanted to shoot it at Studio 54.
Right.
So we parted ways like right at the beginning. I did a few shows. They were hour shows. I shot the first show at Studio 54, which
Okay.
was amazing because studio closed within months after that.
Right.
Studio was only open for 42 months. It opened in 77, and my show went on there in September of 79. So we just got in under the wire,
Right. Wait, so let's talk a little bit about Studio 54. Because
great.
you are obviously the queen of Studio 54.
Well, I don't know if I'm the queen. There are a couple of other queens in Studio 54 besides
I think you're
me.
the queen.
But
I think you're
I was
there's the iconic picture of you.
But the great part about it was was that I had my television show.
Right.
And I got to live out my fantasies on my show. That's what the show was so great about. And so when they decided they didn't want to do the show with me, and I decided to do it myself, I had to figure out a way, how was I going to get the show on the air? So what I did was I made a deal with these different clubs, and the studio was just about closed about then.
Wow.
So I only shot about a handful of shows from studio. And then studio I have the closing night of studio.
I didn't know that the studio was only open for like 2 years.
42 months.
I thought it had been open for, a much longer time than that and closed more recently.
No, but what happened was it was closed for 2 years because they caught the guys, Steve Rebell and Ian Traeger. Steve Rebell went on television and said, "Oh, we're making so much money. The ceilings are filled with money." So they came over and they went up in the ceilings, and sure enough, the ceilings were filled with money. And they took their books and cocaine fell out of the books.
Oh, no.
And that was the end. I remember hearing it like, "Oh, they just broke into Studio 54." So I always had that second sense, knowing that everything wasn't going to last forever.
Sure.
Right.
Like some people say, "Well, let's not do it now. Let's wait till next year." There is no. You have to do it that moment.
Yeah.
Right.
There is never a next year. It's
Yeah.
all, so studio. So what happened was, we had started the show, and clubs came to me and said, "Would you shoot from the show?" So what I did is I charged them $5,000 for every Friday night, and I would give a big dinner, and it would be for a movie premiere or a birthday party for a celebrity or a book party. And I worked with Orion Films. I did all their premieres, and I did a lot of birthday parties. I did Eric Estrada, who was on Chips, and Harley Davidson sent me 5 Harleys, and we hung them from the ceiling
Oh my goodness.
into the flower arrangements.
Oh my God.
And they let me do anything I wanted to, which was great. I gave a party for Amadeus when it opened on Broadway. Peter Firth.
Yeah.
So I had the 100-foot table. Everybody was in livery. I made in the 70s. Was it the 80s? In the 70s, I ended up through everything with me is always by chance. Sort of producing a movie called Aces High.
Okay.
It was in Hollywood. They had they used to do movies as tax shelters. So
Okay.
this was like the last tax shelter before they outlawed tax shelters. And my boyfriend at the time put me on as the producer of this. It was just on paper, but of course, I never leave anything to chance.
Right.
So I ended up, they were supposed to be, it was with Christopher Plummer, Malcolm McDowell, Simon Ward, Peter First, Ray Milland, Sir John Gielgud, and so the company that was supposed to distribute it went out of business. So I got a friend of mine to distribute the company, and I said, I think I'd like to re-edit this film. This is about a $30 million film. He said, okay. I'd only seen the film once, but it was a little boring. First they flew this way, then they flew that way, and then they got killed. Then they flew this way, then they flew that way, and then they got killed. Because it was a World War I action adventure of Journey's End.
Sure.
So it was about these fighter pilots they were like kids. They only lived about 10 days. So one night I was in Studio 54, and I looked across, and there was Peter Firth. I can't believe there's Peter Firth. So I ended up having an affair with him. I ended up redoing the movie. I really got my money's worth out of Aces High.
Oh my God. You could certainly say
I
so.
really did. And then I took it on tour when it opened. The company that was an English company, they decided to open it in North Carolina. And I went on tour with it. I was wearing this Norma Kamali red parachute jumpsuit, like a parachute jumpsuit with a green parachute cape, and with red boots. I was sort of like a cross between Wonder Woman.
Are there pictures of this
Of
that
course,
I can find?
I don't know if you can. I have them
We'll have
somewhere.
to find them and pull them.
Now, also in Studio 54.
Right.
Is that where you met Andy Warhol?
I met Andy Warhol before Studio 54.
Before that, because
Wow.
just before we started recording this, we were talking about behind you on the wall is an Andy Warhol original that
Right.
says "Happy Birthday, Nikki," your
Right.
friend Andy Warhol at the bottom.
Right.
That is
okay, so
truly
on
incredible.
that coffee table, on the table over there,
Behind
there's a
us,
picture of
yeah.
Andy and myself and a man by the name of Richard Wiseman.
Okay.
And Richard Wiseman had one of the greatest art collections. His uncle and his mother had like a collection is now in Mocha, and I can't. I'll think of it. And he was the one that introduced me to Andy. So when I met
Okay.
Andy, the show hadn't even started yet.
Right.
So the show went on the air in 79. So I met Andy like 75, 76.
Okay.
But I'm an artist.
Right.
And he was my biggest inspiration. Andy Warhol, Picasso, and Juan Gris were my
course.
three biggest. So when I met Andy Warhol, for me it was like, wow, Andy Warhol.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, he was like the greatest. I mean, I was more impressed with him than anything. So I met Andy before the show went on the air, before anything happened. Actually, I have a fabulous interview with Andy
On the show.
wow.
Yeah.
that I did on the show. And actually, they used it in a couple of documentaries.
Okay. Yeah.
Because I licensed my footage.
Of course.
know-
Well, you were famously the person documenting Studio 54.
Well, I was very lucky, I must say. Even to this day, you know, Frontline just licensed some. I get $5,000 a minute for my footage. They licensed some footage for a documentary, and I found, ironically enough, we went through some more footage. See, I have an organizational skill problem,
Yeah.
really bad. So, like when we opened up the box of tapes, I mean, I had a warehouse filled of them. So there were these big 3/4-inch cassettes. So on the front would say Rio de Janeiro, and you'd open it up and it'd say Studio 54, and you put it in, it'd be the Philippines. So everything was completely mismarked.
Oh,
Right,
okay.
right.
Right. Then I decided that instead of putting the dates on it, I would color code it.
Great.
Right. So of course I never knew what the color coding was.
Sure.
So I had to go through everything. Plus, the way I shot the show was I put a new show on every week for 3 weeks, and then the 4th week I took the best of those 3 shows and I did another show. So you didn't know if it was the real show or the first show. Everything was a complete mishmash.
Right.
And my catalog, which had nothing to do with the order of the tapes, was like, this is the catalog? I mean, like, so it took us 6 years,
Wow.
you know, because you have to, I mean, I'm still doing it.
Yeah.
I still have another 20 shows that are
Right,
going up.
right.
My shows are now on Freevee, the Nikki Haskell show, and they're on Amazon Prime too, and now they're going on Roku.
Now they're
Yeah.
on Roku.
Well,
On
that's
November the 1st, they're going on Roku.
That's just so incredible because it really is history. It's queer history. It's
Yeah.
history of
I'm the
artists
first one to
and-
put drag queens on television.
That's
I
incredible.
mean, that is iconic.
It is.
You are the first person who ever put a drag queen on television.
Yes.
And
There was a drag queen in every one of my shows. It was all
Right.
because they were all at Studio 50. They were all my
course.
friends.
Right, right.
You know,
who did you? So who are some of the people you met? I mean, I know you know everybody in Hollywood, right? Like
well, not everybody, but a lot.
a lot of people.
It's actually, you know what they say? Everybody knows that Nikki knows everybody.
Oh, really?
You know, so I really know. It's amazing. It's a combination of 3 things how I know everybody. So when I was a little girl, when I was born in Chicago, my parents used to take me to nightclubs when I was like 5, 6 years old. Wow. Right? So I guess I never really asked them why, but I guess they didn't have a babysitter, so they just took me.
Right.
Sure.
Right? So I saw Carmen Miranda. The first time, I'll never forget, the first nightclub act that I went to see was at the Chez Paris in Chicago. And it was very famous for like the naked girls with the tassels on their tits. Going on.
Yeah.
So the first show that I saw was Carmen Miranda and Jimmy Durante. Actually, I have a picture of myself with Jimmy Durante. And the second show I saw was Milton Berle and the Ames Brothers. And I saw everybody from Pearl Bailey. So as a kid, you know, I went to I had the honor of it was really amazing. And then there was a club in Chicago called Mr. Kelly's where all the comedians went.
Wow.
So I knew, you know, like Milton Berle and Shecky Green and all the comedians played there. So by the time I was 10 years old, I knew everybody
Wow.
in that era. In fact, Alan Carr, you know who Alan Carr was?
Yes.
Okay, so Alan Carr used to give me a lot of birthday parties. And Alan Carr gave me a birthday party. And one night, Jill St. John, you know, she married to Robert Wagner. No, Suzanne Plachette, who was on the Newhart show, said to Jill St. John, "I know Nikki the longest. I know Nikki since she's 17." And Jill St. John said, "I know Nikki since she's 15." And Milton Berle said, "I know Nikki since she's 6." So even before I even got to Hollywood, I didn't move to Los Angeles until I was 13.
Right.
But by the time I had moved, and I was,
You were just already in the world.
Right.
I already knew all the comedians.
Yeah.
I knew all the actors, and I knew so many people that were in the industry.
Yeah.
I mean, when I saw Carmen Miranda, I could see her coming out there. She was wearing this white ruffled skirt with a white thing, and I thought, I'll take one of those.
Yeah.
And there's always been a little Carmen Miranda in my act ever since.
I love
I was
that.
Carmen Miranda-ized at birth.
Yeah.
I love that.
So I was very fortunate to be able to have the opportunity. So I met so many people then, you know what
Right.
I'm saying? And then when I became a and then of course growing up in Beverly Hills, I knew
people
everybody in
knew
Beverly Hills, and even though I wasn't an actress or anything, I knew everybody socially. And then I became a stockbroker, so then I met everybody in the financial world.
So
Right.
you just know everybody.
I just know
basically.
everybody.
And now I have a personal question for my own satisfaction.
Which is?
What's Liza like?
Liza. Actually, I was just with Liza recently.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Okay, so let's start with the beginning. So let's start with the end. We'll go from the end backwards.
Okay.
Okay.
So Liza's in really good shape.
That's amazing.
I saw her last year. Maybe it wasn't last year. Maybe it was this year. Within the year.
Great.
Michael Feinstein has a series that he does at the Pasadena Pops Orchestra,
Right.
Okay.
and he did an Irving Berlin night,
Wow.
and Liza was there, and she came out and she sang.
Oh,
Right, I have footage of it,
that's amazing.
and then we went back to the house, back to Michael Feinstein's house, and we talked. I gave Liza several birthday parties. I gave her one at Studio 54. And I was very friendly with her sister, with Lorna Luft. Mm-hmm. And that's how I met Liza. In fact, I'll give you a great Liza story. So an ex-boyfriend of mine had bought an apartment, actually right around the corner from where I live. It was on 69th Street. Mm-hmm. And he was getting married, and his wife didn't want to live in the apartment. So he called me, and he said, Liza Minnelli looked at this apartment. I think she might have wanted to buy it. Could you call her and ask her if she still wants to buy the apartment? So I called her and she answered the phone, which was like, what are the chances of that?
Right.
So she answered the phone and I said, you remember the apartment at the Imperial House? Would you like to buy it? And she said, oh, you caught me just in the nick of time. She said, because I'm just leaving now to go buy another apartment.
Oh, wow.
So she said, I'd much rather have that apartment. So that's how she got her apartment.
Wow.
And then years later, I went to Texas to do this event called the $1 Million Ball.
Uh huh.
And it was Liza and Crystal Gale and Anne Margaret and Marvin. It was about 25 people. It was really,
Right.
And at the time, Liza was married to Mark Giro.
Okay.
And in those days, we used to walk around with the camera was this big.
Right.
I mean, I'd have to take 11 people with me just to go to lunch.
Right.
I mean, nowadays I thought, so we took everybody. I don't know if I brought my camera crew or if I got a camera crew. We went to Houston, Texas for this event. So Mark Giro comes up to me and says, you better not shoot Liza. Because if I find out that you're shooting Liza, I'm going to break your camera.
Whoa.
Oh, wow.
So I thought, well, that doesn't really work for me.
No.
Right.
I'm going to have to figure. So I told the camera crew, this is what you do. Go up, take the camera, and put the camera on the step when everybody's seated, on this step right here, and just turn it on and walk away.
Right.
Right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean,
Seemed like a good concept to me.
You got to get the footage
And
of
did it
Liza.
work?
Of course.
Yes.
And then I got an interview with Liza after that.
right.
Right? And in those days, you had to walk around with these battery packs, and we've been using them. I said, save a battery pack. So Liza was like almost in the dark that it's on YouTube, but it's also on the Nikki Haskell show. So I did that with Liza, great interview. And then just recently, I'm sort of like organized confusion. Like I'm sort of organized, but I'm not really. Mm-hmm. I found a tape. It was the last tape that I did, the last show that I did. To show you how committed I was to the project, I sold all my furniture in my apartment to pay to edit my last show.
Oh my God.
Okay, so I was a girl that was in there for the dime, in for the dollar.
Yeah.
So we went through this. The last show that I did was the Hells Angels premiere, where I had 300 Hells Angels going from 11th Street all the way down Park Avenue, all the way down 57th Street, and we had the police fanning every corner.
Wow.
Right? And it was pouring rain on top of everything else. And we pull up in the thing, and so I found that. And the funniest thing is, so the Hells Angels came over to my apartment. I know I'm telling you two stories at the same time.
No, it's perfect.
So the Hells Angels came over to my apartment because I was doing this party for them for the Hells Angels at Studio 54. So I live in this big building in New York that has a huge circular driveway. They go, Mrs. Haskell, you got to get down here immediately. All these Hells Angels are in your driveway. So I go down. And I'm with Sandy Alexander, who was the head of the Hells Angels. You know, he was like a killer. So I found that tape, and on that tape was the Jet Set Bar Mitzvah. And Liza was at the Jet Set Bar Mitzvah.
Oh my!
So I have great footage of Liza going, "It's Nikki Haskell, we love you," kind of thing.
Wow.
And I had Gina Lola Bridget on it, and I said to her, "So let me ask you a question. Like, do you sleep with all your leading men?" And she said, "No, darling, I only sleep with the directors." And then I have footage of Liza from the Cannes Film Festival too. So I have a lot of footage of Liza.
Wow.
Oh my!
And
God.
it was fun seeing her because she lives up on Sunset Boulevard, and she's here. She lives in L.A.
Yeah.
And I unfortunately don't get to see a lot of her, but I was thrilled to see her, and we reminisced about, I gave her a couple birthday parties and fun things. I mean, I wasn't joined at the hip with her, but I spent remarkable amounts of time with her, always in awe, always, fascinated by her.
Yeah.
Is my brush showing?
Oh.
I have to put that away.
Okay,
Sorry about that.
More with Nikki Haskell right after this.
Sorry about that.
Okay, and we're back with Nikki Haskell. Now, Nikki, you have made headlines recently for blowing up on social media.
How about them apples, Charlie?
You are the OG influencer. You were an influencer before the internet existed, but now you're an influencer on the internet too.
Isn't that cool? Because I was always the OG, the original influencer.
And I love that because it's like we think of being an influencer as like this social media thing, but the reality is that kind of thing and that, those kind of social interactions have been around forever, and you were like such a pioneer in that.
Mm-hmm.
Because so not only did I was the first person to be a stockbroker, I was the first person to have a talk show. The Nikki Haskell show was the forerunner for Entertainment Tonight and Lifestyles of the Rich and Famous. They actually took my tapes. My friend created Lifestyles of the Rich and Famous. So I was always way ahead. And then after I did the show. I did the show for about 6 years, 5-6 years. And then out of nowhere, CBS and NBC decided they were going to go into the cable business. Mm-hmm. See, when I started, there wasn't even a cable guide.
Wow.
People go, and it's a miracle because nobody wanted to be on cable. They go, ooh, cable. It's not. I mean, it was really complicated.
Right.
So what happened was, I decided that I would go. The only way I could get interviews was to go to places like the Cannes Film Festival, and Pan Am was my sponsor.
Wow.
Okay.
And they used to give me these things called S1 passes. And I could just go on any plane, anytime, go anywhere I wanted.
That is luxurious.
So we had
and
a lot
incredible.
of we had a lot of bang for our buck on the show.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? We had a lot of production values. And I was very close to Warren Cowan, who owned Rogers and Cowan, and he represented a lot of dictators. So they used to send me with the the Philippines with the Marcoses. Dictators loved me.
Oh, no.
I was always the hit of the dictators.
Wow.
You know, so after the show stopped, it only stopped because these other networks decided that they were going to go into the cable business. So, and I had a lot of sponsors anyway. I had Saratoga Waters and Sassoon Jeans and Paramount. I had a lot of sponsors. But then when they decided to get sponsors, I got some of their sponsors. And the day I went on the air, they went out of business, and everybody pulled all the sponsorship.
Right.
Right.
So I got like, wait a minute here, what just? And the show was so popular.
Yeah.
You know, I had a huge gay following. The funniest thing is I went to, what's the name of the company that used to check on how many people watch the show? I can't think of it. Nielsen. I was in Nielsen House. I had so many cords coming out of my television set. You can't imagine. And I went to Nielsen. I said, how many people watch my show? They said, no one.
What?
Because they didn't have cable. They didn't
Right.
have anything. There was a
Right.
bullshit operation.
Well, let me also just say for our Gen Z listeners, Nielsen was a company that would set up in different homes to monitor what people were watching, and so that's how you.
But
used to
actually,
get
they actually never really asked what you were watching. They wanted to know, did you eat popcorn? Did you drink beer? How many cars do you drive? And I said, look, when I was living at the Sierra Towers, I said, I'm a Nielsen home. I was the only one. I got a card in the mail. Would you like to be a Nielsen home? I said, sure,
Right.
okay. So I
Yeah.
signed up for it, right? And nobody wanted to do it but me. So I did it. And they said, don't tell anybody. So I told everybody. I see some movie star say, I'm a Nielsen home. So I did that for a long time, but I don't think they ever checked. I think it was a complete bullshit operation. They
Right.
made it, two guys decided, well, we'll make this show a hit, not that show. I used to have an affair with this person, let's get rid of them. But now, I mean, if you want to see what my demographics are, I'm all over the world.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I've got that 18 to 24 market that nobody knows about.
That's a
Ha,
good
ha, 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 ha.
So what do you think of social media and TikTok?
Well, I'll tell you something. First of all, I've always been the fact that I had my television show gave me a leg up because I really enjoyed what I did.
Yeah.
And I used to say, as soon as I can just shoot it in my hand, I'll go back on the air. Who knew that they would ever invent an iPhone?
Yeah.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Because when I did it, I had to take 11 pieces of equipment,
Right.
11 people, and 150 pieces of equipment to Rio de Janeiro,
Right.
just to shoot Carnival. I mean, give me a break. It was like
Right.
it was like a major production.
Oh
Yeah.
my God.
It was like redoing Gone with the Wind,
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So now it's so easy to do. So when I started on my own, and I did the show with Josh.
Right.
I did another show. I did I did something with Josh, and I met this group.
Josh Flagg.
Right,
yes.
AJ Kamar, and he has a company called Timeless Entertainment, the Timeless Company, and we got together, and I had 5,000 people on TikTok and 10,000 people on Instagram,
Wow.
and now I have over 500,000 on both.
That's incredible.
And I owe it to them. I mean, they're the ones that put me in. They photograph me, they shoot me, we do it. But I'm good at it.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? I'm
are.
good at what I do. I'm natural. I mean, you could shoot me all day long. It doesn't bother
Yeah.
me. Some people are camera shy. I'm shy when I'm not on camera. I love being on camera, so it always works great for me. And they're great. And we found our niche, which is a combination of life-affirming messages.
Sure.
Yeah.
I never realized, let's put it this way, I always thought that with everything so available today, like the internet and this and that, that people would be more secure and have it more together
Right.
and understand life and understand their children and understand that they know less now than they ever knew.
Right.
It's shocking to me.
Yeah, I think people they don't maybe think as critically, and instead they're kind of looking for all
To me,
of their
they think,
answers.
no, I find that they're overthinking it. That they're really not. They're waiting to have a good time instead of just living their lives.
Yeah.
I was very fortunate because as a child I was a champion horseback rider, and I used to ride show horses, American saddlebred show horses, and that gave me the strength, the power, and the determination to do things. I'm fearless.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying? It made me fearless.
Yeah.
You walk
When
into
you're riding
any
a,
situation.
you're riding a 2,000-pound animal when you're 13 years old
Yeah.
in competition. So what it did is it gave me a great insight on how to be focused,
Yeah.
right, and how to know what I'm doing. and it gave me an overview of what I was doing instead of just sort of growing up and trying to figure it out.
Right.
I was so aware of it because I had 6 horses. I mean, I trained every day. Even when I went in the morning, my father would take me to the stables at 6, and I'd work out, and then I'd take the trolley car to my school. So I mean, I started training when I was a kid,
Yeah.
and it gave me a sense of purpose, and it gave me a sense of understanding what it was to win.
Right.
You know, you don't have that unless you're in a situation where you're competing, whether it's in sports or whatever. You don't know what you're capable of doing, and having the power to win and to be successful at an early age is an amazing feat. And I think that's one of the great things. That's why I would really say that my personality and my determination and the fact that I'm overly confident.
Yeah.
I mean, I think I'm a little bit too confident. You know what I mean? But
But that's taken you
Yeah.
places.
it's taken me everywhere.
Yeah.
And
It's allowed me to do what I want to do. I don't hesitate. Should I do this? Should I not do this? Is it okay? Is it not?
Yeah.
It's funny because last night I was talking to Kathy Hilton. She's one of my dear friends.
Right.
Yeah.
And we were talking. She's my after midnight call. We speak at night on the phone.
Yeah.
And I gave Kathy her 19th birthday party at Studio 54.
Wow.
And I was there when the girls were born, so I'm very, very friendly with her. And we were talking about, well, for her it's a whole different thing that she's on the Housewives. These are like really vicious people there. You know, these are tough girls. Everybody's trying to get their face in front of the camera, and she's so cool about it. And it's because she's just a really cool person, and
Yeah.
she really has it together.
Yeah.
And has great children and great grandchildren, and I'm so happy to know her because there are very few women that are like that.
Yeah.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? It's a hard to find somebody that you can. I mean, I have a lot of friends. Don't get me wrong. I have tons of friends.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm lucky because I have great friends, and I have them all over the world and everything. But Kathy's very much like I am. She's a positive, determined. Like if you ask 50 people, should you do something, they're all going to say no. No, do that. Don't go there. I don't ask them.
Right.
Why ask them? They're going to tell you no.
Yeah.
Right.
So why bother?
So you just do it.
I just do it.
And is Kathy someone that says, yes, do it, go for it?
Absolutely.
Wow.
I love that.
She's got that positive input that she's got big shoulders. You
Yeah.
know, a lot of people's got kids and grandkids and this one's kids and this and the show and the people and everything. And I'm the person, I don't want to wait to live my life. I'm living
Right.
it
Yeah.
today. And I remember years ago when I went to the Philippines for the first time, I invited a couple people, why don't you come with me? They go, we'll do it next year. Well, guess what? There wasn't a next year.
Right. Right.
You know, you've got to do it when you have the opportunity. And you have to make the opportunity. You can't
Yes.
sit around and you have to, I'm always thinking of good things and fun things to do. I love giving parties. If I don't give a party, I'm really sort of disappointed.
Yeah.
I gave a big party a couple of weeks ago. I'm always loving to do these things. Some people, it's like an effort. Oh, I can't think. I have to get the thing, and I don't know how. I just do it effortlessly.
Yeah.
If you do it often enough, it just comes secondhand. And that's how I feel about my Instagrams and my TikToks. The boys that I work with are just fabulous.
Right.
We work great. It's so funny because I am, needless to say, a control freak. I like to do everything myself and make sure. And because when I had my show, I didn't really have a choice. There wasn't anybody but me.
Right.
Right.
So when I started working with these boys, with AJ, I thought, well, I'll edit with them and we'll do the thing. But I thought, you know what? I'm not going to do that. I'm going to let them do it, but let them do it.
Yeah.
I don't want to get in an argument about one little edit, like this should be her left eye and not her right. I let them do it, and they've done an amazing job.
Wow.
And they put me in a position where now I just finished doing a great Absolute ad,
Oh.
called Cocktails with Absolute.
Oh, wonderful.
Really?
And I
Absolute. We love
We
you.
love you.
and I just did a shoe commercial for GFI, and I did Anastasia products. And I think that this year, because a lot of the products out there, they have people that are influencers that are doing it, but they're the wrong age group.
Right.
I'm the customer. I'm the one that, I have pictures of myself carrying a Chanel bag in 1962.
Right.
So does that make me their customer or not? You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Like we did a thing the other day. I try to explain to them. I had a shocking pink Chanel suit. So I said, shoot me in this suit.
Oh, I think we saw that one.
Yes, and I said, when I first got this suit, I interviewed Heidi Fleiss.
Yeah.
And we went to the clip, and I use a lot of my old clips. But I mean, I have the knowledge because I've done it.
Right.
You know,
Right.
I was there. I was wearing Chanel in the early 60s.
I know. There's
know
that
what I'm saying?
iconic clip of you on TikTok where where that woman is like accosting you.
Can you
on the
imagine
show.
that?
And you're like, I
Yes.
don't ever wear sweatpants.
I
If it's-
don't.
If I'm
you can
not
go
in
through
high
my
heels,
closet.
it's
You'll
not
never
for
find a
me.
pair of sweatpants.
I don't understand what that woman was so up
And you
in
know what
arms
was
about.
so weird? Because I don't even remember what the premise of the show was, but
Right.
it was a panel.
Do you remember what year it was?
Or do you remember what show it was?
It was a Phil Donahue show.
Oh, it was Phil Donahue.
And he, ironically, we ran the second piece, and he started with me too. He said, you know, that's a really sexy dress you're wearing. I don't want to be a sexist or anything. I thought to myself, well, this is not a sexy dress. It's like a regular dress. It's just that I'm sexy. So the dress was sexy.
Yeah, exactly.
So then when she started with me, I thought to myself, this must be a setup.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, they must have had somebody in the audience that because why would anybody say anything so stupid to me?
Right.
And if you look at me, I look like myself like, is she kidding me?
Yeah.
I mean, you really, like, you took back the power in a bit, you know, because it was an age of sexism and misogyny and all of that, and you just took that power right
Wow.
back.
I was like, he said, yeah. She said, well, how you expect men to not look at you? I said, I'm expecting them to look at me.
right. Right.
Right.
But
Get it? You got it there?
Right.
you know, what I'm learning about you is like you did that all from the perspective of not worrying that you might be the only woman in a situation or you might be looked at as like, you know, an other or something like that. You just did it because you wanted to. And I think that's such an important lesson. I think nowadays we think about like statistics a lot, like, oh, I'm the first person to do this, or I'm the first woman to do this, or the first, and
I was.
Yeah.
I was the first woman to
But
have.
you weren't thinking about being that. You were
No.
just doing it
You were
because you
just
wanted
doing
to.
Yes,
it.
I was.
and you were
I think a lot of it
fearless.
has to do with the fact that I'm left-handed. I think left-handed. I'm
Me too. I'm
serious.
a lefty.
I think left-handed people think differently.
Wow.
You know, because I mean, nobody's ever done or thought the way I think. And I mean, I know that a lot of it came from my mother, who was always said, "Do whatever you want. You know, it's your life, and explore it and have." Where most people say, "Don't, you can't do that yet. No, that's not for you. Somebody else is going to do that." Nobody
Yeah.
ever told me that, or if they
Right.
told, you know what I would say? They told me, but I never listened.
Yeah.
I didn't pay any attention. They go, "Oh, screw you."
Yeah, so your popular TikTok series is knowledge
Yes.
what I wish I knew when I was in a decade, right?
Right.
So we are 26.
Right.
That's
Yeah.
how old we are. What advice do you have for us?
Just keep doing it. Just go out there, wear as many sequins as possible. You know,
We sure will.
when in doubt, overdress.
Yes.
Yes.
You know, Coco Chanel.
What's your tagline? I can be dressed and ready.
I can be overdressed in 5 minutes.
Yeah.
But you know, it's interesting because I'm getting ready to do my own podcast, the Nikki Haskell Show podcast.
Yes.
And I'm coming up against the same thing again. They want me to do it in a studio, and I want to do it on location.
Right.
So I'm sure we'll come to a common ground.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying is,
The common ground will be
Yeah.
on location.
Yes. Do it on location.
I can't say that. I have to be, you know. See, what happened with me, you know, when it was like the good news, bad news. If I had had partners, nobody would have ever let me do what I did.
Right.
Because I could never have convinced them that I'm going to go to Rio de Janeiro and dance on top of a float. It was, I don't see it in writing. How do you know this is going to happen?
Right.
Yeah.
And of course, you know, it has to be in your hands. Like, because I danced in the Samba School parade on the Avenue for a couple of years, you know, with these big headdresses. I never forget the first time when I had this headdress. It was like this big, you know, it had all these little nails that went into my forehead like this, and I got like Dr. Scholl's foot pads, and I put them in the top. They're racing in front of my house.
Yeah,
I live in the
crazy.
corner of Le Mans
Yeah, well,
and the Grand Prix.
we're right here in Beverly Hills.
Yeah.
You'd never know it. You'll hear fire engines momentarily. So I thought, well, you know, it's fun going on the Avenue, but I want to go on a float.
Yeah.
So by this time, they used to call me the American Carmen Miranda. So I was with Aegon, but I had my little outfit on, and it was the middle of the night because this thing starts at 9 at night and goes to like 9 the next day.
Right.
Sure.
So I had credentials to go on the Avenue. So the man that was the head of TV Globo introduced me to, see, the way they do it is there's 10,000 people in each school of Samba. So there's like an alley, so everybody lines up in one alley, and then the other alley, the people come down the thing. and they sort of rotate so that there's always people coming, getting ready to perform. It takes an hour,
Right.
maybe 2 hours to get from one end to the other end. So I convinced this guy didn't speak a word of English, right? And we're walking back, guys are pissing and drinking beer and everything. It's pitch dark and everything. Finally, there's like, I said, out of 10,000 people, there's got to be somebody that's not going to show up, right?
Yeah.
So we're walking and walking and walking, and all of a sudden there's this big float with a big, huge skirt like this, and the Miss Brazil was on the top of this float.
Oh.
And there were 2 little stands next to it like this, and they took the stepladder and they threw it up there, and I climbed up this thing, and I was up like higher than this. This is like maybe 7 feet high, maybe
Right.
this is,
Yeah.
so this was about 12 feet high. So it's like a little stick. And on this thing is like there's like just a little wooden thing that you stand on, and you have to hold on. Like if you let go, you fall right off.
Right.
Oh, God.
So as the sun was coming up and the samba school music was playing, there was only 3 of us on this float, right? I was on the left side, Miss Brazil was in the middle, and some other girls on the other side. May have been the most exciting experience of my life.
Wow.
As the sun was coming up, and you could hear the samba school music coming, and
Yeah.
as we went down the avenue, it was so funny because all my friends were like Nikki, what's Nikki doing? How did Nikki get there? You know,
Wow.
because I asked my girlfriend that ran Carnival, I said, I want to dance on a float. She was, next year you go on the float. No, I'm going this year on the float.
Wow.
When I came down there, took it, it was just, even thinking about it, it excites me. So
Yeah.
you have to do things that are outside of the box.
Yeah.
I've ended up in so many situations in places I wasn't supposed to be. And it worked out great. That was one of the best ones.
Yeah.
Then there was another one. I used to have a product called Star Caps, which is a diet product.
Yeah.
So Bill Clinton used to take Star Caps. So his aide de camp called me and said, we're in Hawaii and we can't find the Star Caps. We went into a general nutrition center and they said they don't carry them. I almost had a heart attack. So they said, well, if Clinton gets in office on the second time, we're going to invite you to the inauguration. I had already been. I went to Kennedy's inauguration. I was always big in the inaugurations. So they say they made me a member of the Arkansas delegation, and I go down to Washington, right? And it's like one of those things that sounds better than it is.
Yeah.
They take me to this burnt-out army barrack, like on the outskirts of Washington. Well, this is where the delegation is staying.
Right.
Sure.
I said to the driver, take me to the Willard. I never even got out of the car. We went right to the Willard. It was like a day before the inauguration. I called my travel agent. They got me right in a huge room with a view. I called and Beverly came with me, right?
Yeah.
So that night they had an event at the Portrait Gallery. It was a Vogue magazine and VH1. So we walk in and there's like an upstairs area there, sort of like an Eva Peron kind of a balcony situation, right? And there's like a red carpet going up these stairs. I say to the guy, excuse me, I'm Nikki Haskell, and I'm with Beverly Johnson, and we're supposed to be upstairs. So they open the thing, and Beverly and I walk upstairs, and there's nobody there, just the 2 of us. And she goes, you always do this to me. You're always dragging me someplace. And just then Hillary Clinton walks in. So now it's Beverly, Hillary Clinton, and myself. So she said, hi, girls, how are you? Come with me. So the 3 of us go out to the balcony, and we're
Wow.
waving at everybody.
Wow.
Hi, how are you? It's so nice
Wow.
to see you and everything. Okay, fine. So now the next night, we go to the Arkansas delegation, their ball, which was the worst. I said to Beverly, there has to be a VIP area here. They can't not. So I look up and I see on the screen there's like a Julio Iglesias. Well, I was the first American that ever interviewed Julio. So I said, let's go backstage. So I see a guy that looks like Ollie North with the hat and the thing, and he's like picking people out of the crowd. I said, let's follow him. So we follow him. We get to the first checkpoint. They say, are you with the first family? We said, yes. So we go right in. We get to the second checkpoint. They say, are you with the first family? Yes. We go right in. So I said, Barry, let's go backstage. They had like a makeshift thing with like wooden sticks and canvas kind of thing. So we go back. There's like 150 Secret Service guys like this. They said, excuse me, where do you girls think you're going? I said, I'm Nikki Haskell, and I'm with Beverly Johnson. I'd like to go see Julio Iglesias. He said, you don't even have the wrong credentials. You don't have any credentials. He said, you get out of here immediately. So we got out, and just then, the Clintons are coming in like at the far end, and they're doing their first dance. So when they finish the first dance, I don't know how there was like a fence, but it really wasn't a fence. It was like a canvas thing with like a little wood barricade. Somehow I'm wearing this long beaded Vicky tail dress. I flipped over this embankment with Beverly.
Yeah.
And here comes Bill Clinton. And Beverly goes, hi, you girls. He says, you know Nikki Haskell Star Caps. Oh, I love Star Caps. He says, now Hillary comes, and she sees us.
Yeah.
Of course, she remembers us from the night
Right,
before.
from the night before.
Of course.
He says, do you know Nikki Haskell and Beverly Johnson? She goes, of course I do. So then we go back, and Julio's back there. So
Now you're with Julio Iglesias.
Julio's so happy to see me because he's like sitting there for hours by himself.
Right.
Yeah.
So they said, why don't you girls come with us and you come to all the balls? And Beverly and I went to all the balls.
Oh,
Wow.
my goodness.
It was the greatest. We had the best
That
time.
mean,
is
how
so
incredible.
fabulous.
Well-
you are an icon.
We could.
I most
hear
certainly am,
stories
and
all
don't
day.
forget it.
Yes.
We absolutely will not. I've had the pleasure of knowing you for almost 3 years now, and you have the sharpest mind. You are always a go-getter. You always are the person to take
Never give
action.
in, never give up, and never take no for an answer.
That's
That's
right.
incredible.
And it has been such a joy having you
Yeah.
on Let's Talk About That. The people can find
Let's talk about that.
Yes. Let's talk about that.
And
So
the people can find you on social media.
Yes,
right?
I'm Big Nick, BH, BIGNIK, BH, on Instagram and on TikTok.
on TikTok.
that's amazing.
And you can find us.
And I'm run by the Limitless Company.
of course.
Incredible.
They are
well,
the best.
You can find us on Instagram and TikTok at Let's Talk About That Pod, and on YouTube at Let's Talk About That
Oh,
Pod.
I'm on YouTube too.
Oh,
Yeah.
incredible.
I'm everywhere.
That's amazing. And you really do want to watch this one because Nikki Haskell looks gorgeous today.
Incredible.
Wow, and don't forget that.
Okay,
All right.
thank you so much, Nikki. And we'll
Thank
see
you,
you
guys.
next time on
Let's Talk About That.
Let's talk about that.